Well, what do we have here? The Mavericks head in now to game 4 with a 2-1 lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm a little bit behind. This weekend was insane, getting everything organized, but here we are now, hours away from game 4, and the Mavericks are going to try to hold home court. But before we get to game 4, I wanted to talk a little bit about game 3, because this to me was really vital for Dallas. We saw it with the Clippers series as well. You drop game 1, you get the split that you needed, but you have to be able to hold home court. You need to be keeping that pressure on. If you fall back, yeah, it's only one game, but if you fall back 1-2, you're really putting yourself in a tough bind. So being able to be the team that jumps out ahead, especially when you're the underdog, I think that's huge. And there's a lot to take away from game 3 here, because on one hand, I feel like Dallas's role players really established themselves here. This is not a perfect performance, still some things to talk about, but I really liked what I saw from the obvious, right? Your leading scorer, PJ Washington. One game after he drops 29, a playoff career high, he gets 27 points again here. And not only that, he's knocking through threes because they're just wide open. We talked about this, my preview of the series with TMP before we even got underway. I talked about how OKC allows the most corner threes in the league, and that's because they collapse down. They shrink the paint. As you get penetration, all 5 guys are descending on the ball. Now, while that does cause disruptions, gives them a lot of shot blocks, a lot of steals and deflections and things of that nature, it does leave them vulnerable to those corner threes. And that's why 12.8% of threes made against the Thunder last year were from those corner spots, or they were like the last 30th ranked team when it came to allowing the corner three, like a wide open shot. That's what I mean to say. And that really has proven its point, because it's from that position that PJ Washington has cooked them the last couple of games. So Dallas, they get those opportunities and they knock them down. And they really did a good job controlling this game. Now, this is still a series of runs. These two teams are so evenly matched, even though their styles aren't exactly the same. But I loved what we got out of Dallas, and not just PJ Washington. Again, 26 or 27.6 rebounds, 2 assists for him on 11 of 23. In what world would we have imagined PJ Washington taking 23 shots? The game before that, he took 11 threes. Insane. Now he hit 7 of 11, so we were cool with it. Here, he takes 12 threes. He's 5 of 12, but like, the opportunities are there and he's hitting. He's making them pay. In addition to the disruptions he's causing on the other end of the floor, the defense that he's bringing to the table here. What up, Frank? So just great stuff from PJ Washington. And, it's still a little bit of an iffy game for Luka. He's banged up. He's 7 of 17 here. It's not as bad as game 1, certainly. But game 2, a little bit better out of him. This one, a little more run-of-the-mill. But we're getting gutsy plays out of this. And, like, great defense out of Luka and Kai. That's the thing. That's, for me, the biggest thing I would take away from this series so far. For two guys who have zero reputation in a positive sense for their defense, they have shown out and bought in. And when your superstars are helping lead that charge, it's so much easier to get that total team buy-in. And we're seeing that in these plays. Luka is playing through more physicality than I think he's ever had to deal with. Like the Clippers, in the 3 times he's faced them in the playoffs, yeah, they've beaten him up. But I don't know that we've ever seen Luka just getting like mauled play after play. Every time he's touching the ball, Lou Dort is glued to him. And being, again, I've said this before, The Thunder is kind of a secondary team of mine that I at least have appreciation for and keep relative track of. Doesn't mean I watch a lot of their games, but I do have that background context and familiarity with that. So watching this series unfold in the Twitter sphere from both sides of the fence is really interesting because there's a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, wow, that's a clear foul. And then you look on the other side of the thing, they're like, what? Well, that's just a flop. Lou Dort did not throw a knee into Luka's midsection. Here's the other angle. He threw a knee into his midsection. What are you talking about? Well, he should be allowed to fight over the screen. Like, what? I mean, he threw a knee into his midsection. What are you talking about? It's a foul. Why are we trying to change the conversation? And to be fair, sometimes there's times where I think even on the other side that the Mavericks fans are a little like, I don't know if I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I agree that maybe in that situation that's not a foul, but or a foul I would call as an official, but that's neither here nor there. Point of all this being, it's just very interesting watching these games in a playoff series because now there's real stakes to it. It's not the normal banter and bickering that you would see in a regular season matchup. There's heat and everything feels like it's being treated as this huge, huge thing. But Luka playing through the physicality, not just the sprained knee. You have him colliding like you had in the final minutes of the game. I think it was like 2 minutes and change left. Him and Lou Dort go up for a deflected pass. They call a jump ball on the play. Look, I'm going to be real with you. Of all the things that happened on that play, I feel like a jump ball was the least likely thing that occurred. But Luka takes a bad spill on his back. And they're frustrated. Lou Dort's kind of like hovering over him a little bit, and Luka kind of like shoves at him away with his foot. And so I see Thunder fans like up in arms about that. Like, oh, fine, suspension. Like, miss me with that. You can't be the irritant trying to like be under a dude's skin half the time, trying to wear the same jersey as him as you're guarding him through these screens and stuff, while also flinging your body around every other play, diving on the floor as if you're a crash test dummy, and then say that like, you can't then just like be looming over him and like, oh, how could this player be frustrated by this? It's silly. It's ridiculous. But the defensive plays made by the Mavericks here are just fantastic. And I'm going to have to give credit where credit's due here. Jason Kidd made not just the adjustments for game 2. I felt that he outcoached Daigneault, coach of the year, Mark Daigneault, in game 3 as well. Because I was, and shout out to TMP before the game the other day calling this. He predicted this, that because of the Mavericks centers and their struggles at the foul line in this series, that OKC might deploy a Haka strategy. Haka Gafford, but Gafford wasn't really in because he's dealing with shoulder stuff. And so you're going after Lively, that they would employ a Haka Lively strategy. He was dead on the money, but I'm honestly shocked. And I feel like this is not being talked about enough. The Thunder aren't just the 1 seed in the Western Conference. They were the number 4 rated defense. We're talking about game 3 with 6, almost 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You're down. You're not even down in the series. The series is tied at the time. And you flip everything. 5-point game. Go, all right, we're going to go to the Haka strategy. I get trying to steal a point here and there, but when you have that defense, when you have the pedigree they have defensively, when you have because here's the thing, man, Haka strategy, it just throws your own offense out of a rhythm too, because everything has to stop and button down to deal with that. So doing the same thing, setting up in these situations where you're going to have to break your own team's momentum to wait for these free throws to be shot just to try and steal maybe a point in a possession is wild to me. Like that's a thing that to me signals not having confidence in your team. And I think it's because OKC strategy, while it worked gangbusters in game 1 when the Mavericks role players couldn't hit, OKC has not really countered that punch yet. And so you're just getting all of these, now these last 2 games, you're getting all these good looks for these shooters, and they're connecting on a strong enough percentage. In this game, Dallas shot still 33% from 3, but 11 of 33 overall, all the same. It did enough to inflict damage to hurt OKC's scheme. And it's, again, an extension of what they did a lot of in the regular season. So going to that strategy to me sends a strange signal or strange message to your team that you don't necessarily have confidence in their ability to, despite all the runs these teams have traded already through this series, to overcome a 5-point edge. That's wild to me. And it just puts you in a situation where, man, if Lively's hitting these free throws, which I know how bad he's been free throw shooting thus far, but it's like if he's hitting these free throws, you're really in trouble at that point, because what's your what's your broader message to the team? What's the response from that? Well, Lively made 8 out of 12 free throws in the game overall. I think they sent him on the hacker strategy 3 times. He missed the first 2, made the next 4, and then they stopped. But the only time Dallas took him out of the game, and I get it, Lively was very disruptive. As bad as Lively has been these last 2 games offensively, just struggling to catch the ball, complete dunks, alley-oops, whatever, right around the basket, putbacks, he's been still so good defensively. He's an energizer bunny. He's bouncing off the walls. He's disrupting shots. He's getting boards. Dallas has done a great job on the offensive glass in this. They win the offensive glass battle 15-6. I swear there was like 2 possessions in which they racked up like 6 or 7 of those alone. So like those 2 possessions are the lion's share. But even still, like hitting the glass well, and they're trying to get Lively off the floor. So they go to this strategy. Dallas takes him off for just a moment, just to kind of like pull him aside, talk to him, and say like, "Hey, don't sweat it. You don't run away from Chet. Don't play a game of tag." As amusing as that looked, just go do your thing. We believe in you. Kyrie talking to him as well, and he goes in and makes his next 4 free throws, and then the Thunder are forced to abandon that strategy. For me, going to the hack strategy, that's if it's like today's game and you're in danger, like double digits trailing with like 6 minutes or less. You're in that kind of position at risk of being down 3-1. Then I'm going to that kind of extreme of like, okay, maybe we need to look at this because I got to figure out a way to neutralize him. To me, it was just a very strange thing. And it screamed a team that's not more confident in itself and its players, despite having a really good team. Again, we can talk about like Lou Dort's defense, the flopping around, the fact that Luka is constantly getting banged up, his ankle stepped on, his heel stepped on, knee-to-knee contact with the sprained knee, falling flat on his back, crashing to the floor. You can talk about all of that, but the grittiness and toughness with which Luka is playing and still like making key plays. Luka had a steal with like 2:23 left where the Thunder are getting out in transition, and Luka literally just intercepts the pass and takes it from half court, streaking through the lane, and gets a bucket. Like, it is plays like that are so huge. I love how this team is responding, not just the mental toughness, not just their guys playing hard defense and rebounding well and fighting despite adversity at times. This has been an extremely physical series. And at times, as physical as it's been, at times there's still been just bafflingly soft whistles sprinkled in there, usually to OKC's advantage. I get that. I do. But this is a real show of mental toughness that has me just enamored with this team right now. PJ Washington is absolutely making the most of this opportunity because OKC strategy is, hey, we're going to make these other shooters beat us because we're just going to hound Luka and Kyrie. The attention Luka and Kyrie is getting. I know this is a hot button topic right now, but like some Thunder fans feel like Shea is not getting the same level of respect as Luka. And it's like, dude, Luka is like 60 to 70% of his usual self right now at best. And he's still facing those kind of double team coverages, and his team is leading now 2-1. Like, Shea, he's fantastic, but I've said before, and I'll say it again. To me, he's one rung on the ladder down. If you want to say it's a half rung down, whatever, I don't care. The point is, they're not exactly the same. The Mavericks are still shielding plenty of attention his way as well, SGA's way, but it's not near to the level of what Luka's having to face. And OKC's strategy, the last 2 games, it paid off dividends for them in game 1. The last 2 games, it has not helped them at all. It's actually put them in a hole because the 3-point shooting has been awake enough for Dallas to get some things cooking here. Let me roll into some of these comments here. I know we got good conversation going. I think Kyrie's been the one who's been controlling the game for the Mavs to keep it from going out of control. I agree, Frank. Kai's leadership is so huge, and it's one of those things. Some people who kind of watch more of the games, they watch it either casually or they're watching it from more of a box score and then watching the highlights and commentating on it. And this is no disrespect. I'm not trying to call any creators out, like content creators out, but I've seen some people who are like posting videos like, "Oh, the Mavericks are a problem," or "Why the Mavericks can win it all," and I'm like, hey, I appreciate your hypothesis. Let's watch. And I'm kind of watching, and they're like, oh, there's just not, you're never going to have another game where Kai's held to single digits. And I'm like, I don't know that that's the way I would have presented it. Like, yes, he was single digits, and yes, his shooting percentage wasn't great in that game, but he also did not prioritize his offensive creation there. He was more about the steady hand, more certainly in that game about the defensive impact. There's just several things in there that I kind of looked at and I was like, I feel like representing it that way is more saying he had a bad game and oh, somehow Dallas still found a way to do it when it's like, no, I think Kai had a great game too. He just didn't score. Like he impacted the game in every other way you could conceivably do that. And so his leadership has been huge. And he was one of those guys that went and talked, not just Kid, but that talked to Lively after he did the runaway game of tag with Chet. And it's just like, dude, slow it down. You got this. We got it. Like, I think I have the exact quote saved here somewhere, but I'll see if I can find that. But it's just remarkable here. TMP was good. Totally agree with what you said. Can't throw yourself around like a crash test dummy and then play the victim. And that's what they're doing. And, Dort, yeah, he's built like a linebacker. We keep hearing it. I get it. He doesn't have to do that. And that's not that I've observed. Again, I don't watch a ton of Thunder games, but of teams that aren't the Mavericks, I watch more of them than any other team that I watch. And I don't feel like I see this as often. I feel like it's trying to have your cake and eat it too. It's trying to not just get in Luka's head and frustrate him and irritate him. It's also trying to just steal cheap fouls where you can. It's trying to get like the move we all see, like the Dort, where their Mavericks are setting the high screen on Luka, which is to set the screen on Dort, free up Luka, and Dort just cartwheels himself around the screen, even if it's set, even if it's locked in, and it's just trying to draw that attention to the car crash and give the impression that like, oh, moving screen or something, because he doesn't just like hit it and fall back, like he like spins himself around it, like cartwheels around it as if the hip flew out as he was rounding the corner and that's why he wiped out. And he's doing that multiple times a game. And it's getting to the point where like he's doing that and then Luka and Kai in synchronization are almost like, man, get up, get your ass up. Like, what are you doing? He's just trying to steal cheap fouls. He's trying to get them over the foul limit. He's trying to get fouls on Lively, on Gafford, just to put them in foul trouble because the Mavericks centers, they're not doing a lot from an offensive standpoint. Gafford was good game one. Gafford, give total credit for that. Offensively, games 2 and 3 were not near as strong for the Mavericks center duo, but their impact is undeniable. What they're able to do for this team in terms of rebounding, in terms of rim protection, all of that cannot be questioned. And so he's just trying to apply that pressure to it. I don't condone it, but I understand it is what I'm saying. So that's kind of what's indicative here of this Thunder team. I feel like at this juncture is they're playing with physicality and at the same time flopping and getting away with it more often than I would like to see for sure. It's very challenging to play when you feel like on one hand you can be punched in the mouth, but if you sneeze on the other guy, which in a post-COVID world is probably more of an insult than ever, but uh, still, if you feel like you do anything at all to the other guy, that it's going to be whistled. I mean, SGA got a body bump call with like 2 minutes left in the game. That was wild to me, especially with this being, ends up being a 105, 101 win. Crazy that you can have that opportunity there. I took a screenshot here at one point. This is fairly early in the game, but it just shows like my thread. I'm going to read you the top 4 tweets in this screenshot I got here. The first 2 are from Dalton Trigg. He says, Lou Dort flops on every single screen the Mavs set. It works though, so he can't blame him. Then he says, that man is built like an NFL linebacker. You can't tell me that those screens are truly sending him flying like a boomerang. After that, Bob Sturm talking about it's kind of great that Hubie thinks Luca is actually 230 pounds. That one's not as related to that. But then the very next one on the thread after that is one of those Thunder accounts that I follow. This one being Boomtown Hoops saying, wild run right there. Almost certain Luca chirped at the official every single play, even when the Mavs had whenever he's in the game. It's just like the opposing views of the same events. Luca being mad about the Dort flopping thing and talking to the official about it, and their perspective of it being like, "Oh, Luca, crybaby." It's that same sort of disconnect that leads people after the game to say, like, when Luca in post game was talking about, like, yeah, there needs to be more consistency with the officiating, and fouls that aren't being called need to be called. Thunder fans, a lot of Thunder fans I saw like went up in arms over that. Like, they shot more free throws than us. They shot 25 free throws compared to 19. Bunch of crybaby hypocrites. Like, did, did you forget that your team employed Hacka Lively? That the reason and that the difference in the free throw attempts was because you intentionally put the Mavericks center on the foul line like 3 trips in a row or 3 out of 4 trips, whatever it was. Lively went to the line for 12 free throws in the game. He made 8 out of 12. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You can't employ hack a whatever strategy and then be like, oh, but they shot more free throws. What? It's wild to me. The disconnect there. So that's something that I'm still trying to kind of make sense of, even as I watch it. I'm like, you know, I like a lot what you guys are doing over there, but some of you are making it difficult to even be happy for you when things are going well right now. Let's see. Oh, also shout out to TMP. I caught a little bit of his post game show talking about it as well. I agree wholeheartedly. The Mavericks centers need to do a better job, and even anyone just driving the lane going at Chet. Don't challenge the man vertically. Like, I get it, he is a great shot blocker, but you got to get into his body. You got to draw contact elsewhere. You can't try and go up through his arms when he's vertical. That's not gonna work to your advantage. So it's tough. I get it, but like you gotta change how you're attacking him because too often you're letting him just erase things for you. How many blocks did he actually end up with for the game? Holmgren had 4 blocks in the game. Yeah. And I think those were largely in the first half. So maybe they did make an adjustment there, but definitely worth calling out. Kyrie Irving in this game too. Again, steady hand back to his 20 plus points. He had 22, 7 and 5, 7 assists, 5 boards on 10 of 17 shooting, 2 of 6 from 3, including his just lethal assassin closing time routine. You had Luka making clutch defensive plays, intercepting passes, getting loose balls off deflections, things like that. But you also had Kai cooking with the left hand, putting J Dub in a whirlwind, and then taking him to the hand with that left hand, kind of like running hook shot again. Not as miraculous as the Denver game winner, but still just a fantastic job there. And it's just a delight to see this team functioning like they are. Heck lively. So surprised they did it. I found it funny, says Frank. Yep. You noticed how Mavs essentially canceled out Jay Will and Chet offensively. Shea's pretty much on his own offensively. That is one of those things too that Dallas's defensive adjustments have now for 2 games bothered OKC, and they've not gotten the same impact out of Jalen Williams or out of Chet. Chet cooked them in game 1, and the ways they've adjusted to that have been significant. It's not just that the Thunder have not shot the 3 ball as well as they did in game 1. It's also just been like their overall production. Like, J-Dub was very quiet by his standards in game 2. I think he technically had more points than he had in game 1, but the thing with game 1 was he had 10 of his 18 in the fourth quarter. So he was a big part of that final pull away that the Thunder managed. Game 2, he didn't have that kind of impact at all. And game 3, it was also kind of ho-hum there. I was a little worried watching this game. We still had some good plays from Tim Hardaway Jr., but when game 2 was like, we got a Hardaway burner. Nobody panic. Everybody get your stuff. Don't panic. We got to go close this out. This was very much a return to the normal for Hardaway. Hardaway 16 minutes, 8 points, 3 of 9 from the field. Now, he did have 2 rebounds and an assist, but he was also a -7. So it did feel very much like, and we're back to normal. Okay, well, hopefully you can find little flashes and flares, even if it's not a burner. Hopefully you can give us some good moments here and there. So yeah, that was one of those things kind of watching the game unfold that I was like, okay, if kid's going to lean too hard on Hardaway here, this could get problematic quickly because it's very clear he doesn't have his hot streak that he had in game 2. But fortunately, was not a problem there. Um, Luka also 22, 15, and 5. By the way, 15 boards for Luka doesn't just lead the Mavericks. But again, when you talk about the physicality he's dealing with, getting the hell beat out of him in this game, in this series, and still leading the team in rebounds, that's just dope. That is like straight up stone cold killer stuff, man. Like there's something about that, like giving up your own body for the sake of helping your team. Because the Mavericks got a lot of good rebounders, man. Like PJ rebounds pretty well for his size. You got athletic guys out there too, like Derrick Jones Jr. You've got Lively, you've got Gafford, like you've got other guys that are capable of doing it, but you also have your leader going in there, as beat up as he is, saying like, "Nah, I'm making sure we got this. I'm not like I trust my teammates, but if I can get it, I'm getting it because we can start the break immediately and save ourselves a little time." So, really awesome stuff there from him. Let's just touch on those centers here. Gafford in 20 minutes had 8, 5, and 3. He was 4 of 5 from the field and had a block. Derek Lively, the last 2 games have been probably his worst offensive games in terms of just like comfort. Like he's struggling to finish around the basket even when he's getting offensive boards, struggling to complete alley-oop dunks at times. He looks very frazzled. But the thing is, it's almost like that nervous energy is helping him on the defensive side. And again, when your mentor is Tyson Chandler, if there's one area you feel like you're going to be pretty secure, it's going to be that defensive side. And his impact has been so great there. In 27 minutes, he gives you 12 and 8, only 2 of 7 from the field, 8 of 12 at the line. But he's a plus 16. He had no blocks, no steals, but he was a plus 16. Like that is, did I say 18 and then 16? No, plus 16. Like that is tremendous, tremendous impact there for Lively, especially considering how bad the offense was. What up, Master Flame? Game day, yes sir, yes sir. Some of those OKC fans have even OKC beat writers seem so unhinged. They really make you question the understanding of the game. I agree. There are definitely people that are credentialed media members that are like, again, I'm not going to name names, but if you know, you know, that are like, I took a taxi in Dallas, and even the cab driver was telling me he couldn't believe some of the stuff Luca was getting away with. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, first of all, what a nothing unverified account. And even if he said that, who cares what a random cab driver said just because he's in a certain city? I don't care if it's the mayor of Dallas telling you Luca's getting away with stuff. Is he an authority on something? Like it's just a weird thing to me. Like you see these kind of interactions where you're just like, again, I respect what they're building here, but some of you make it hard for me to root for the team when I see you're the ones that got to be kind of like the face of this whole team and what they're doing. Let's see. Kyrie's defensive effort and execution has been the ultimate sign of his leadership. Very impressive and a great sign of maturity. Absolutely. 100% agree, TMP. TGK was good. Luka played great defense, especially in the fourth and in the last 2 minutes. He really did. He really did. He's got both knees bloodied up. He's beat up. You can tell. He came off the floor and walking back to the locker room is literally telling you, like, yeah, everything hurts right now. But it doesn't matter because he's going to play. He talked again about it. The difference of playing hurt, of being hurt versus injured. It's like you're hurt, you're going to play through it. It's bumps, it's bruises, but you're going to play through it. That's just a mental toughness. And the fact that he's still getting 15 boards means he's not even shying away from the physicality. It's not even like he's out there just doing his best or just trying to help the offensive end, largely shooting step backs. He's literally out there selling his body out on every single play, not just trying to get to the basket, not just trying to draw that attention, but also playing defense, also battling through that kind of physicality. Yeah, this game, Dallas led through the first quarter by 3, OKC led by 1 at the break, and really balanced. Like I OKC was better offensively in the first half. Like they shot 52.6% compared to just 38.8 for Dallas. The real difference there was Dallas had 9 of its offensive rebounds. 9 of its how many offensive rebounds did I say earlier? 9 of its 15 offensive rebounds. So over half of its offensive rebounds came in that first half. And again, I think most of those came on 2 possessions back to back. But even still, just an incredible situation. You're down 1, yeah, but I kind of didn't know how to feel about it at half because it's like, oof, you hate being down despite that many offensive boards, but they are shooting well. So it was going to be a matter of how the two teams responded in the third quarter. And I really felt like Dallas's response was tremendous. Like this was a game of runs, but Dallas always had a counterpunch. I think they had like a 16, what was it, like 16-2 run or a 16-0 run, something like that at one point that like really spearheaded them ahead for that last time and kind of put OKC in that situation where they're like, all right, let's go to hack a lively. Like, man, that's just so wild to me. This is from Tim Cato on Twitter. He says, Luka's best singular skill might be his shooting touch, and he just hasn't had that this postseason. This is at halftime, as of halftime yesterday. He's 22 of 61 in non layup shots in the paint. That's 36.1%. So the fact that Luka's bread and butter, his greatest weapon, has been that unreliable in this postseason run, but Dallas is in the position they're in, and Dallas is still winning the games that they're winning is pretty remarkable. Again, speaks not just to his mental toughness and grittiness, but the team as a whole kind of rallying around that. Let's see. Let's see. Just looking through some of my notes here. What are my thoughts on Derrick Jones Jr.? The 3-point shot, he has not been hitting very well on that. I'm a writer. I speak good. Has not been hitting on that very well in this series. I think he's really beat up. Like, I still love what he brings to the table, and there's intangibles to it. But game 2, really, you saw moments late in that game where there there was clear miscommunication and like multiple plays where him and Lively, for instance, were colliding, and you're just like, what's going on here? Because I know Lively's a little out of his head right now too, on that end of the floor at least. But I think Derrick Jones is beat up, and all the more reason it's huge that PJ has stepped up. I said last round that while PJ was the meme and while he had his moment in game 2, really, yeah, I mean game 2 and all that, but like really for me down the stretch of that Clipper series, Derrick Jones Jr. was the guy defensively for Dallas. I feel like this series has now kind of gone the other way a little bit. PJ's been the dude, like not just the defense, but he's also added the offensive side too. So he's been phenomenal. And if that helps Derrick Jones Jr. a little bit, then great. But he's not, he doesn't look comfortable shooting the 3 right now. So I'm curious to see as this series goes on. One is it a confidence thing? Because we see that with Josh Green at times too. It's still frustrating to me when, again, some of these content creators and all that will go out there and they'll say like they're just looking at numbers, they're just looking at percentages, and they'll say like, well, I mean, Josh Green is the Mavericks' best 3-point shooter, like talking about like in terms of role players, and I'm like, man, Josh Green, like I know what his percentages say, but the number of attempts and how streaky and like when he's on, yeah, no, he's very confident, especially from that left corner, nails. But when he's not confident, oh boy, you'll get clanking off the side of the backboard. You'll get a lot of ugly bricks that man builds a house with. So, and that's not to be completely dismissive of Green. His impact is great. Some of his X factor hustle and heart and stuff has been phenomenal, even in this series. But when you look at it like that and they're presenting it as like, so really like, even with that, like the Thunder are focused on, uh, PJ and what he's doing. Really, they should be afraid of when Josh Green comes around. Like Josh Green's never gonna. I say knock on wood. Josh Green. If you're wondering like if Josh Green would be the one hitting 5 and 7 threes respectively in the last 2 games, bro, I don't see that. I don't see that. I'd be shocked if you got Derek. Or I'd be shocked if you got Josh Green to attempt 7 threes in a game. Like that's just kind of how I view it. And that's why I'm like, some of these people that like do these commentaries, yeah, they get like tons and tons and tons of views. I get it. But it's also like you're not really following it and applying like the rationale to it, I feel like in some of these cases. But I digress. I like the hustle from him on the offensive boards. No, absolutely. You talking about Derek Jones there? Yeah. The hustle, the heart, always there. Dude runs through a brick wall every single play, giving everything he's got. And I absolutely love that. Something to note, I mentioned J-Dub for the Thunder. That ankle is going to be interesting to kind of watch. He came back from it and everything, but I'm going to be curious to see because when he went down, he looked to be in a lot of pain. Like that looked like it was really bothering him. So I'm going to be curious to see how that goes. How that goes as the series goes on because he's a legitimate number 2 option. And again, as you talk about some of these people in like the Thunder media circle that I've followed or at least been aware of for years, that I'm like, oh, yeah, he's really got some good takes and good perspective. He's like, man, really though, the broadcast talking about how like, the Mavericks have two closers and the Thunder only have one. And he's like, J-Dub had averaged more points in the fourth quarter this year than Luka. And I'm like, I mean, that's a stat without context. Like Kyrie led the league in fourth quarter scoring. Luka led the league in first half scoring. So what's the conversation? Like that's the trade-off. It's a weird conversation. Like I get you're trying to say like, hey, don't completely dismiss J-Dub, and I'm fine with that stance. But when you try and put the Luka thing there as if to say like, oh, he's a better closer than Luka this year. Like, no. I don't think anybody outside of Oklahoma City would make that statement. So it's weird that you're presenting it as if that's the statement. But again, it's very interesting to me watching this series unfold from both sides. Like, well, I'm obviously on the Maverick side of the fence, but like having that glimpse into like that Thunder sphere and actually like knowing not just some of the accounts talking about it, but the media people talking about it and just being like, that's a weirdly bad or non-nuanced take from you. I guess your homerism is just getting the better of you here. Okay. Overhelp at a lot at times. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Oh, the meme. Yeah, the meme on the cab driver in Dallas saying Luka's getting away with a lot, and as if we should now change our like, oh damn, the cab driver said that in Dallas. Shit. Okay, man. Maybe the officials got to look at this. I don't know. Maybe we need to just like take the whole thing back, step back, reset. Maybe just throw out last game. Maybe just replay game 3 and this series tied 1-1. Like the cab driver said. Oh man. Yeah, this was Kevin Gray. So that run I was looking for earlier, trying to quantify the Thunder were up 10 in the third quarter, and the Mavericks used a 16-0 run to actually grab a 6-point lead, and they never really looked back. Like they stayed closed, you stayed clinched the whole time, bracing, but at the same time, it did not ever amount to that, fortunately. I don't see any numbers or logic to the OKC podcast. Always thoughts and feelings. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of that too, and there are good writers for that. I contend that just like anything else on the internet, a lot of the people you see talking and the ones getting attention is because they said something stupid. Because the good ones who have the reason take and aren't in their feelings about it, they're not going to get the same level of engagement in the comments because their own fans, you're going to have a large percentage of them that are just completely, buried behind their rose-colored glasses, their own Homer glasses and all of that. And then you'll have another percentage where because they're rational and reasonable, the other team's fan base, our fan base, is not going to then jump into their comments and be dogging on them and trolling them for saying stupid shit. So like they just don't get magnified in the same way. They are out there, the reasoned ones, but we're only seeing the bad ones is what I feel like. What do you think is wrong with Gafford after going down every contact? I don't think it's a soft thing. I think Gafford's hurt. The difference is I don't think he's injured. Again, that conversation of hurt versus injured. I definitely get the feeling that Gafford's dealing with some kind of hand or shoulder thing that's really bothering him. And, that's a concern. Again, this is a very physical series. And so I think that's taking a toll. Unfortunately, Lively is having the impact he's having. So this is why you got two of these guys, right? Even in the finals, 2011 finals, you lost your backup center for the last 3 games, I think, of the series, or maybe it was the last two. You lost Haywood at the wrong moment, but Tyson was still Tyson and handled his business. And then you had like the emergence of momentary hero Jan Mahimi, all that, and you got Brian Cardinal stepping up, the custodian stepping up. Like you just had great work like that, kind of offsetting it. The Mavericks are still getting enough right now from Lively that they're able to absorb that. I am worried long term as I look at this. That's really my biggest concern with Dallas overall right now. I don't know what this series holds. If they get past this series, I don't know what the rest of the run looks like for them, because the way they're beat up, like there's nothing I've seen or heard suggesting Luca, again, knock on wood, would need surgery or something in the offseason. But beat up to a degree, this is not something that is just going to resolve itself even if they got a few days rest. It'll get a little better, but he just needs extended rest. He's beat up. He's dealing with sprains. He's dealing with the back now as well. Like there's issues. And Gafford, we know in this playoff series or in this run alone, he's had an ankle injury. He's had back issues. He's had a shoulder thing, like just beat up in general. So attrition, which was a major theme I talked about in the first round, is circling back, but now I feel like we're on the downside of it. Really, the only guy the Thunder have that they're worried about at all is J-Dub, and he still came back after the ankle thing. How he responds afterwards, that'll be interesting to see. But that is my concern here, is the Thunder are still very good. I said, regardless of this series, whether this series went 5 or 7, to me, these teams are so evenly matched that it would be a war even if it was 5. I look at that and I say, like, okay, so now factoring in health, how does that make us look for the rest of this series? How does that make us look for potential future? I don't even want to look that far ahead, but I'm just thinking, like, you've got basically your absolute superstar and one of your two best weapons in terms of your front court there with Gafford really banged up. That is a concern. And that is something that, as I look around the other contenders remaining in the race, in the playoffs and everything, I don't see a lot of teams dealing with a similar level of injuries or guys just beaten up. So that's something I'm kind of monitoring here with a little bit of concern. What up, King? Statement game, yes, and I actually love PJ Washington. Shout out to Kevin Gray Jr. there at shoot around this morning. Talked to PJ Washington, and he basically said, like, look, I know what the picture is. I know we're up 2-1, but to us, this is a must win tonight. I love that mentality. I hate when a team is just like, yeah, we're going to go out there and try and get the W. But like, you kind of see how the team is playing. You're like, you're not playing like you really like have to have this game like this. You're playing like, hey, this would be great if we could get this, but it's not a must win. We'll see how it actually plays out. But PJ Washington this morning talking and shoot around saying like, no, we're all approaching this like this is a must win tonight. They want to put the back breaking pressure on the young, inexperienced Oklahoma City Thunder. And I love that mentality. That's how you can use their youth against them, their inexperience against them. Lockbox ENT, we outside today. Oh, he's talking to King. Yeah. Nice. OKC's age shows when they play in adversity. Yeah, and again, I feel like I gave a lot of credit coming into the series that Dagenham would be able to kind of steady hand them, but I really was amazed when they went to the hack a lively strategy because to me, in that 6 minutes and change left, 5 point game, the entire series to date has been like this team goes on a 12-0 run. This team goes on a 16-2 run. This team, like, it's been a series of runs. You're down with over half the fourth quarter left in a tied series and the signal you're sending to your team is we got to start hacking the center to try and steal a point here and there where we can. Like that's really weird. That's a weird desperation thing. And maybe you're trying to take advantage just of Lively struggling at the foul line so much and struggling offensively the way he has the last two games. But you're still talking about a guy that shot like 75% from the field in the regular season and now in the last two games hasn't been able to buy a bucket. But if he makes those free throws, you're building up that confidence. And with the Mavericks leadership with like Kyrie and even Jason Kidd, and again, I'll find those quotes here. I know I got them somewhere in here. I want to find that exact quote. I got a lot of notes here from this game just because there was so much to really dig into. By the way, the impact of Lively, despite how bad his offensive game has been these last two, this is from Panda Hank on Twitter. He's a plus 34 combined over his last two games. For that to be two games in which he can't buy a bucket to save his life, that is astounding. Astounding impact. So maybe that's why they're trying to play him off the floor however they can, but that still sends to me a weird sign of desperation. This is Luca talking about Lively on the free throws. Just said big respect to him in that situation. Again, people keep forgetting that he's a rookie and that he can do good stuff. Where is? I know I've got it, and it's going to drive me crazy until I find it. Somebody put in the comments what Kai said about Lively. He talked specifically about what he told him, like in the timeout there, to kind of help him settle. Oh, here's a great stat from Nick Engstad. Luca and Kyrie have 12 steals, 5 blocks, and 6 deflections between them through 3 games in this series against the Thunder. Again, you got guys that don't have a reputation at all for their defensive impact, and yet there they are making major plays going up against the 1 seed and having it stacked the way it's been. TGK predicting Mavericks go up 3-1. Oh, he's saying he doesn't know what he'll do with himself if they go up 3-1. Yeah, I agree. We cook now because of the cab driver. Yeah, the damn cab driver just sold us out. Now the NBA is going to look at this and overturn the game because the cab driver said that Luka was getting away with some stuff. One OKC podcast blamed the officials. Not sure why they lost game 3. As to why they lost game 3. No way the dude's believing what he's saying. Yeah, no. That's the thing though. They do. But again, it's where the focus is. I don't think this is all the media people because there are media people that cover the team that I have been aware of, at least I loosely followed for several years now, and who I have respected and have seen like, okay, good. At least they're not jumping in with these terrible takes. But one of them did. And I was like, oh no, not you. not you jumping in on this bandwagon. Like you guys, you hadn't lost a playoff game. You won your first 5 playoff games. Now you've lost 2 and you immediately have to go into like, it's a conspiracy. What they're getting away with is unethical. Like, no. Roll it back, man. Roll it back. Let's be objective and look at what both teams are doing here. By and large, this has been an incredibly physical series. And when it's not been physical, when it has been tic-tac, I feel like it's cut evenly. And when you look at like when it's not even called, when you got Dort cartwheeling around, boomeranging around these screens, then it's like, Yeah, no, and when it's not called, it's for a reason it's not called. So I don't know how you can say that. The people acting like Dort didn't straight up high knee Luca in the ribs, like he was trying to load him up for CM Punk's go to sleep or something. Kenta's go to sleep. Just wild, wild and shameless. King asks, how do we feel about our crowd? Oofa. Well, they were not there in the way that I had hoped they would be. Game, what was the game? Was it game 4? I think against the Clippers when you were down 31 and that crowd was just coming unglued. Kai hits a 3 to cut it to like 25. The crowd is just coming unglued. You would think we were tying the game or making it a one possession game at that point. That is the kind of crowd we need. That is the kind of reaction that we need. And it really is just a cultural thing. People have talked about how like the AAC is almost too luxurious in some ways. Now it's not like a brand new arena or anything like that, but it's not like Reunion back in the day where it's like a can of sardines where you're like on top of the court almost like bundled in like sardines. But like the teams that have the best home court advantages often have those kind of arenas. The Pacers, the Thunder, Sacramento, their new place, like that do this kind of thing where you just feel like you're on top of the court and your presence is felt. The AAC is a little too spread out, and with Dallas and like the wealth and all of that, like especially the court size people, the people in the 100s section, you can't get them to wear the shirt, man. I wish they would wear the shirt. When the team makes up those free shirts and they're giving them away. And I know they even had like Chris Arnold out there, like their DJ basically at the game, like saying like, "Hey, we gave you these shirts, put them on. If you don't have the size you need, literally ask an usher, we'll exchange it for whatever size you need." Like they're asking, they're begging, they're like, "We want this home court advantage. Please just take advantage of this. Help us. Like, get fired up, get loud." They're in the second and third quarter. I thought they were way too quiet. It felt like a completely different crowd from what we saw in game 4 against the Clippers in the first round. And I'm thinking that's by and large just that they got pissed off and almost defiant because it was the Clippers. Because it was like, not this effing team again. I am so sick of this team. Like, we're just gonna get fired up for everything we do. We're just gonna try and like say, like, screw you. We're not gonna lose this again. We're not gonna go quiet in the night. And for whatever reason, they just don't have that same energy here. So the crowd felt weak to me. And from anyone I saw that was there talking about like the experience, it seems like they kind of share that opinion too. So they got to step it up. I wish I had more optimism that they would, but I don't know based on what I've observed in the years past and all that. It's almost like until you get to that stage, like if it's the West Finals and you're taking a 2-1 edge or a 3-1 edge, God forbid, that will wake their ass up. But it's almost like Cowboys had the same problem, by the way. These people are there, and it's like I saw people at a Cowboys game by the end zone get mad at people standing up in front of them cheering on, like, "Hey, you sit down." Like, are you serious? No, man. Like the game is on the line here. Like our team is up. What are you talking about? Sit down. Like that's just a weird cultural thing. It's like the armchair fans that just like, "Oh, I just want to watch this and whatever." It's like, no, you buy in if you're there. You give into that energy or you shouldn't be there, honestly. Like that's my take is like, if you're not going to help give the team a home court advantage, like be a part of that at least, then what are you doing? Why are you bothering? You're just throwing money there to say that you were there. I don't know. Uncontested podcast. That's one of the ones I saw. Not the only one. I know the Cancun thing is almost a meme. I hate the reference of Cancun stuff because I never like to run my mouth until and this is where Luca would even call me a bitch probably. I don't like to run my mouth until I know that I've put that shit away. I was never that player. I didn't trash talk when the result was over, but like I had to know that we were in a good position. I wasn't the guy that would trash talk you in the first quarter. If I said anything at all, it would be usually if it was a heated game and we were pulling away in the fourth quarter. And I was especially contributing to that. If I was doing that in that position, then I would be like, "Yeah, man, maybe just pipe down, sit this one out." That's when I would talk. Not so much when not so much there. So when we talk Cancun stuff, I'm like, let's not do that. The Clippers were in a good position too when they decided to talk, and that went disastrously for them. Do you fear that Luca is injured? Again, I don't know that he's currently in a state where he would need any kind of off-season surgery. Knock on wood. I don't know. I am not an expert. I have no intel or sources telling me anything. I would say, however, I think he needs extended rest, and it's just not rest he's going to be able to get. Even if they won in 5 games and the T Wolves and Nuggets went 7, it would help him absolutely, but I don't know that he would get back. It's not like he's going to get back to 90%. I don't think. I'm thinking Luca in this run is going to be hovering somewhere between 60%, and maybe if you can get him extended rest, you can get him to 80-85%. I would love to see 80-85% Luca for what it's worth, but getting him to that point, I don't know how likely that is. I think he needs extended rest from the summer just because he has so many things going on at this point, and he keeps pressing that knee. And if the knee is sprained and you keep pressing it, unless it's just a bone bruise or something, but you keep pressing it and you got a sprain, then eventually the sprain gets worse or you risk worse. So I'm trusting that they know what they're doing, and it's not just, well, he refuses to come off the court. I'm trusting that they know what he's doing and that what they're doing, and that they have reason to believe anything else that happens would be a new occurrence and not just risking the fate of the franchise on this one game. I always think back to Dirk 2003 Western Conference Finals against the Spurs. Dirk goes down in like game 1 or game 2 with a sprained knee, doesn't play again the rest of the series. The Mavericks end up falling in 6. That's the Steve Nash, Nick Van Exel, Michael Finley Mavericks. A lot going on there. I think you also had Rafe LaFrance. A really fun Mavericks team. That was the first year I got into the team and was aware of them and was like, dude, this is my team. But Dirk said afterwards he wanted to play. And that was the big falling out between Nelly and Cuban wanted Dirk to play. And yep, Steve Kerr, that son of a bitch. Game 6, Steve Kerr. But he wanted to play and wanted Dirk to play. But Nelly was like, you don't risk this kid for this. I know you might be able to win, but if the doctors aren't certain he's good to go, we're not going to risk it. And that's the decision. And Dirk said after his career, at the time, I was in Cuban's corner on that. I wanted to play no matter what. But now, at this, having gone through the rest of my career and seeing everything else I was able to accomplish, I think Nelly might have been right. Because if Dirk had played and he had torn an MCL, ACL, whatever, then how different would everything have been for the history of this franchise? Like, who knows? So I trust that Luka's not in a similar position where we're just rolling the dice and hoping for the best. So I don't know if he's injured. I definitely damn sure know he's hurt. Why do I think Luka can get suplexed with no fouls, but Shai gets grazed and it's a foul? What is my conspiracy theory for that? Straight up. Luka's reputation precedes him as the guy that's always complaining to the officials, and he chirps a lot. He does complain a lot. And I think refs are just sick of it. They don't want to feel like they're being shown up because they know when Luka's dressing them down that the camera's going to catch it and they're going to look like, frankly, a bitch getting chewed out by Luka. And if they then adjust how they call the game to his favor, they look like they're being subservient and bending the knee to those calls. Even though the league ref whatever Twitter account even shared an example of Luka talking to an official in a dead ball from this series, a dead ball situation, discussing like, hey, why isn't that a foul when that happens? And they cited that and said, this is the perfect example of how to discuss questions about a call or no call. Even with that happening, the perception is Luka is constantly crying. Again, writers, media people who I respect and who I've followed their work for years, covering. And again, I'm from Oklahoma, so like it's not just covering when they're talking about the Thunder, but it'll be them talking about like OU. Obviously, again, I'm from Norman, so I'm a Sooner. I know some of you are probably like, oh no, not you. Yeah, miss me with that. But I've respected their work, and I'll see them talking about it, and they're like, "Boy, Lucas sure does complain in every call or every dead ball," and it's just like, dude, you're trying to paint a narrative here as if the Thunder don't have a smear merchant when it comes to drawing fouls, as if SGA is not out there flailing and getting the softest whistles. It really is. It's an art, and he has mastered it. And he somehow walks the line enough of not complaining and not reacting enough that I feel like they reward him further with it. That's kind of the catch 22 is like, like Tim Duncan complained a lot about calls, and he built up enough of a reputation and a legacy that he kind of just got to the point where it was like, oh, well, if Timmy thought that, then, maybe we can be a little bit more lenient. Maybe he is right. Maybe we do need to watch this more carefully or whatever. Um, but SGA has just been generally quiet enough about it to avoid that. Now Dort, he'll do the incredulous thing, but he's got that little bit of Pat Beverly in him, which is a little ironic that the Thunder, for if any franchise in the league, the Thunder despise Patrick Beverly more than anybody. They are convinced there that the reason they don't have a championship is Patrick Beverly blown out Russell Westbrook's meniscus in that first year without Harden, because that was the difference. That was the Thunder team that was like number 1 and 3, I think, in offense and defense that year. And went on that run that they had. Could have, coming off the finals run and everything like that, they thought they were a destined team for it. But now they've got their own Patrick Beverly. He just happens to be in a much bigger frame and a linebacker build. But he's kind of doing some of that same stuff. And that Westbrook became a Patrick Beverly too is also wild. But I think that's just kind of how they look at it. And so I think they get away with those calls. They get away with that sort of thing because they don't show up the officials. Luka is always going to be vocal and speak his mind, disagree. Sometimes he's actually going about it the right way, but because of his reputation, people will share the clip. Again, you're not going to hear what they're saying, but they're going to show the clip and be like, see, here's Luka again showing up the refs. And then the NBA shares it and goes like, no, this is actually the perfect way to conduct a disagreement or a discussion about a call or no call. But it doesn't matter. The reputation preceded him. So the assumption's already been made. It just plays into the narrative. It plays into what people expect. Yep. Mavs got to finish the series against OKC quick while the Nuggets and Wolves go to 7. Longer rest. 100% agree. 100%. Absolutely need the rest. And it's not just Luka beat up. A lot of these guys are beat up. Derrick Jones Jr. and Gafford are also beat to hell, I think. Maybe not to the extent of Luka, but they're both beat up and hurting for sure. How are we feeling about playoff kid? Well, the man still can't win a game 1 to save his life, but I'll be damned if he doesn't make good adjustments between game 1 and the subsequent 2 and 3, because same pattern as the first round. Lose game 1, win the next 2. Let's hope they handle their business in game 4 today. They certainly didn't in the first round. Woke up, almost snatched it back from the jaws of defeat, but still dropped that game and looked very much like they did in game 1. Like they very much went on cruise control. So I'm hoping they've learned their lesson from that and they're going to be more dialed in and focused and not messing around like they were. Like they need to come out and be the aggressor. They need to play like they're the ones down 2-1, in my opinion. And it sounds like from PJ Washington's comments this morning that they understand that. Here's something cool here too. One of my notes I found. Points in the paint from game 3. Dallas had 52. The Thunder had 38. Dallas also had more second chance points, 16-9, and more than twice as many offensive rebounds. That is some good doing for the Mavericks. I like the aggression. I like them getting there and fighting through it. Luka's banged up things we know about are right knee sprain, left ankle soreness, and back, I think, is bothering him a little bit. I haven't seen the back listed officially, but he seemed like he was very clearly laboring with the back after the last game, which, given that fall with Dort on the phantom jump ball, again, I would have called that play 3 other things rather than a jump ball. I think the officials basically were just like, well, it was a midair collision and we called something, so we can't say it's a no call. but we could maybe say it was a foul on Dort or a foul on Luca since we don't know what to say. We're just going to call it a jump ball. That's my takeaway from it. They blew the whistle. They're like, well, we got to call something. So I guess we'll just call it a jump ball and let them decide it themselves. Not sure. But the fact that you got a team that can win that kind of physical, tough, and ugly game is very, very sweet. That is, you know what? Credit to you there. I actually don't think about that both PJ and Shea, Kentucky. That's I was not aware of PJ. I don't follow college basketball. That's why I never do draft stuff really, by the way. The exceptions being I did one when I very first was starting the channel covering Dennis Smith Jr. getting drafted that year. And then I did one for the year, ended up being Luca. But I don't really do draft coverage because I'm not a college basketball guy. So I feel like a little bit of a disingenuous when I try to cover it. I'm like, well, so-and-so says this, and I tend to believe this guy, which is why I kind of waited until I didn't do any pre-draft stuff before Lively was picked. But I was like, okay, I'll do a video now because everything that I've been reading and what I've looked into of him since drafting him says like, oh, no, this could be a really, really good get. That's why I jumped immediately out on that ledge saying he's going to be Tyson Chandler 2.0. And I still think he can eventually be Tyson plus a jump shot eventually. Here's been one of the most hotly contested points from this series so far. This originally came from Josh Eberly. He says he loves SGA and he's special. He says, but the Mavericks are playing him one-on-one and he's winning some, losing some. Whereas Luka's playing hurt and the Thunder defense is still collapsing on him, all caps, without fail. Either Daigneault respects Luka more than Kidd respects SGA, or the gap is bigger between them than most think. I lean that direction. I don't know that it's fair to say that the Thunder or that Shea is only seeing like one-on-one coverage. I do believe it's shielded that way a little bit, but he's not getting the same attention and focus that Luka's getting. And yet Luka's, you know, if you put their stats head to head against each other in this series, SGA looks like maybe the better, but I think total impact and doing what they have to for their team to win and succeed, I feel like Luka's gotten away and still shown even at this level that he's as good, if not better, and he's nowhere close to 100%. So saying that here, I feel like shows that gap between them. No disrespect to SGA, love him, one of my favorite players. In terms of like how I would rank the elite players in the league. Like I have him in that elite category. But he's not Luka. And I've always said he's not Luka. Panda Hank pointed out that Tim Hardaway, rough first half, bounced back a little bit in the second half. Ho-hum, 8 points again. Josh Green, also better in the second half as well. And the thing he points to was Tim doing damage off the dribble is a very nice touch. Again, not just being solely the 3-point, flamethrower or something where he's just going to throw up a shot all the time and you just got to worry. And then, by the way, here's a point on that previous thing talking about SGA, the difference. SGA, Mr. I like the caption of this from this Twitter user. He says, Shea, free throw emergent Gilgeous-Alexander went crazy in the fourth quarter. 6 points, 1 of 6 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, 3 turnovers, 3 of 4 at the foul line. Absolutely crazy. I really appreciate the sarcasm in that. That had me laughing a bit. And it just kind of boils down to, I think, the difference of some of these guys. Watching Lively run around like Steph was comedy. Oh, it really was. Yeah, I loved it. SGA calls are crazy. They are. No Maxey misses a lot. He's missing as usual. So no Super Dwight. Only little Timmy. We got it easy. You don't have to cover up the scrubs. All right. I do think Maxey's impact has been missed here. Just again, offensively speaking, the floor spacing he provides and his defense. I understand it's not as good as it used to be, but he still will have flashes for you where he's huge. 2 of those wins in the first round were huge because of Maxey. So that's absolutely worth calling out and giving credit to. They do miss his presence here. In fact, that's one of the reasons I think shows that Luka is the better of the two between him and Shea, is that he's also, it's not just his own physical status. It's not just that it's a 1 seed versus a 5 seed. It's also the fact that they are missing one of their better weapons in what this series matchup would be. And it doesn't matter. They're still up 2-1. I remember watching, this is from TMP. I remember watching that game and getting so quiet in my living room as Kerr hit all those threes. It was me dying inside. Yeah. For sure. Game 6 of the 2003 Western Finals Mavericks and Spurs was very frustrating. Shea is great, but he clearly doesn't have the impact that Luka does. He's a quiet 31-point game. Yeah, I mean, quiet, sure. But I do think that at times he's so steady. He does a good job answering the call at times. There's moments where you feel like the Thunder offense is pressing and searching, and then he'll just hit a couple threes in a row or something. And you're like, okay, that's answering the call when it's needed. That's great. So he'll have moments like that. He'll have, near triple doubles and things of that nature. Awesome. Great. But it's not the same caliber of player. I like this from Josh Bowe. He said this before game 3. He said, I understand what the numbers say. He's not shooting well with Dallas. Oh, no, this is actually calling back from the 9th, so a little bit longer ago. He said, I understand what the numbers say. He's not shooting well with Dallas, but it blows my mind that PJ Washington at times gets the Tony Allen treatment. He scored 43 points in a game 5 months ago. He's a talented offensive player. I swear he is. Yeah, considering what he's done the last 2 games, 29 and 27, 7 threes in one game, 5 threes in another. Yeah, leading the team in scoring this last game. Yeah. I'd say that's fair. But somebody asked earlier about playoff Jason Kidd. He's pressing all the right buttons, man. He's made good adjustments, and to my shock, so far through 3 games, he has outcoached the coach of the year, and that's pretty sweet. When these two teams are as evenly matched as they are, but the Thunder have the advantage of like youth and health, and I think overall better depth, maybe. I look at that and I'm like, not having coaching hurts. You almost have to hope that the combo of Luka and Kyrie is enough to overcome, the Thunder and their star player with Shea and then Jada being a quality number 2 option. And fortunately, so far through 3 games, you've had Kidd performing as if he is the better coach. I don't know that he is, but through 3 games, he's winning this chess match thus far. Tonight, this is from Landon Thomas. Tonight, referring to game 3, marked the 5th time in this postseason, that the Mavericks have held their opponent to 101 points or fewer. They are 5-0 at those games. Says a lot. By the way, OKC, through 5 games of the postseason overall, had not allowed anyone to score more than 95. Dallas has now dapped them up the last 2. Val Hoops points out J Kidd responded to Hack a Lively by trusting Lively to hit the shots. He took him off, had a pep talk with him, and then subbed him back in immediately. Lively went 4-4 at the line after that. They point out that keeping Lively off the floor would have sacrificed the size advantage the Mavericks had. It was a huge gutsy decision by Kidd, and it paid off. That's one of those moments where being a player coach is huge. Like, that's a huge chance to take in that moment, but you're putting the trust in the player, empowering the player. And I get it. I've said before, like, sometimes guilty myself of revisionist history saying, maybe you're not putting the player in a position to succeed. Because if Lively goes out there and misses 3 out of those 4 or all 4 and the game goes badly, then we're looking at it and saying, like, dude, you put your rookie in a bad spot. That's where it's like you can't base it on the outcome. And I'm guilty of that sometimes. So I think overall, Kidd has pushed the right buttons, made the right adjustments. He's done well. I'm not saying I don't still have my gripes and concerns with Kidd, but as much as I could hope in this series, at least, that he would do well and play, coach to his potential and ability, he's done that thus far and even exceeded in some areas what I expected. This playoffs, despite Luka shooting overall 41% from the field and 26.4% from three, the Mavericks are 6-3 overall. Your third place MVP finisher is shooting barely 40% from the field and barely over 26% from three, and you've won 6 out of 9 games in the postseason. That is noise. Noise. Here's an even better one on the Hacka thing. This one writer, credentialed writer for not for the Thunder, but covering the Thunder, is like, Dallas had 25 free throws to OKC's 19. The insufferable crying from Luka continues. Again, that post game where Luka's talking about certain things not being called need to be called. This person points out the Mavericks shot 10 of their 25 free throws on intentional fouls, you absolute dumbass. Oh my God. Yeah. If you're employing a hack or whatever strategy and you do it more than once, you lose any right to talk about free throw discrepancies, unless it's like 30-10 and the hacker was like 4 or 5 free throws or 4 or 6 free throws, whatever. Just absolutely wild. Kevin O'Connor points out the Thunder need to rethink leaving PJ Washington open. He said, I understand OKC's desire to throw multiple bodies at Luka or Kyrie drives, but it's clear at this point the Mavericks are happy to feed Washington. He has made 39% of his wide open threes in his career. That's in his career. I'm curious what he's doing in this series overall. Mavs Muse also had a good breakdown, comparative breakdown of him there. They said his defense, PJ Washington's, is like Sean Marion. His bag is offensive games like Caron Butler. His vibe is Deshaun Stevenson, and his confidence is Jason Terry. It's a hell of a combo. I don't know that I agree on all those points necessarily, but he's quickly becoming an absolute legend in Dallas for sure. And the fact that he's waited his whole career not just to play in the playoffs, but to play for his hometown team. Really cool that he's getting to do this and have a huge impact like he is. Let's see. I'm just looking through to see if there's anything else I want to touch on here. Here's that quote from PJ. I've been waiting my whole career for this, so I'm enjoying each and every second of it. He's averaged 22 points, 54.2% from the field, 53.8% from three, 7.7 boards, and 2 assists thus far in this series. Good googly moogly. That thing is juice. That's probably not the overall reference I want to make, but I was like, oh, that works until you apply the original context, and then it becomes like a moving on kind of comments, but we'll see. As I get ready to wrap this up, if you guys got any quick comments or quick questions, hit me up, tag me at the Dallas Prospect or at DDP. I'll see either one of those, and I'll get those answered here as I go into this wrap up. Mark Followell pointing out Luka and Kyrie have played 60 games together this season, including regular season and playoffs. Today's game 3 versus OKC was the first time in those 60 games that neither Luka or Kyrie led the team in scoring. PJ Washington again with 27, both of them with 22 for what it's worth. Mavericks duo in the fourth quarter this playoffs. Kyrie's averaging 8.1 points and Luka's averaging 6.2. Kyrie is shooting 53.2%, Luka 51.4%. Kyrie from three in the fourth quarter, 52.6, Luka 46.7. That makes them the highest scoring fourth quarter duo in the playoffs this year. But again, tell me about how Luka's not a fourth quarter closer. Weird takes, people. Weird takes. And that brings me up to speed with all my notes. So I don't see any questions rolling in here. I've been going about an hour and 20-ish minutes. So I'll just wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We got game 4 here tonight. We got to handle our business. Stand on business. Lock it down. Play like you're the team that's down 2-1. Put these young kids on their heels and put the pressure on them going home to get it done and keep their season alive. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see these slow starts. I don't want to see us. Hey, we finally won one of these mid-afternoon games. We were garbage in the first 2 of those we had this postseason. So we got one finally. Great. Let's keep the pressure on the young kids now where they got to go home and fight for their damn lives and their season if they're going to keep their thing going at all. Because right now, as evenly matched as these 2 teams are, if you get them 3-1 going back home, man, I feel obviously like, oh, I feel great about that with a 3-1 lead. Yeah, no shit. But legitimately, you put the pressure on them and you get at least some little bit in their head where they're wondering, like, dude, we've been so close. We've been right there so many times, but they're just finding these little ways to stay out of our reach. How do we right the ship here? How do we get this done? Not just once, not just twice, but thrice. And it sure isn't nice. I tried to do something funny and I feel like I bookended that. So anyway, like the video, subscribe to the Dallas Prospect. And until next time, guys, remember, every legend was once a prospect.